There's a woman who works with my husband who has a lemon tree in front of her house, and she was very nice and came and brought us a bunch of lemons. So I've decided today I'm going to make a lemon chiffon cake. I'm going to start with my lemon curd. So my first step, I have a cup of lemon juice. I'm going to take a tablespoon of it out and put it in a bowl. And then I have a teaspoon of unflavored gelatin that we're just going to sprinkle over the top. And we're going to let that bloom while we make the rest. So the remaining lemon juice, it's a cup minus a tablespoon. I'm going to pour into my saucepan with a cup and a half of sugar and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to turn that on medium heat and cook it until the sugar dissolves. It shouldn't take more than a minute or so. While we're letting that cook, I'm going to take 4 whole eggs and 6 egg yolks, and I'm going to whisk them together. This to just heat up. We don't want it to boil. Then we're going to pour it into our whisked eggs to temper them. I got it just warm enough. We're going to slowly pour in here and whisking the entire time so we don't cook those eggs. And then pour the whole mixture back in the saucepan. And we're going to keep whisking and cook it on medium to high heat, so I need to turn up the heat just a little, for the next 5 minutes. And we have to stir it the entire time. And we're just waiting on this to thicken up. So the other thing you have to do at the beginning of making lemon curd, and I should tell you this when we start, I took 8 tablespoons of butter and cut it into cubes and put it in the freezer because we need it frozen. Only for like an hour. If you notice, it's starting to thicken up. That's what we want. A little more. Okay. So we see how thick it is. Now we're just going to remove it from the heat, turn the heat off. I'm going to take that gelatin that we mixed with lemon juice earlier. Just a couple seconds premature. We're going to whisk that in. And now, these are my 8 tablespoons. It's a stick of butter that was in the freezer. So I'm just going to slowly whisk in the cubes until they melt. Still a It's not going to take long. They're just tiny pieces, and you can feel them in there as you're stirring around. It doesn't go through smoothly. That's when you know you've still got butter. But now it feels all smooth to me. So I'm going to transfer this to a bowl, a glass bowl, and then cover it with saran wrap and pop it in the refrigerator. It needs to chill for 4 hours before we can use it. So I got my glass bowl out. All I'm going to do is pour my lemon curd. You can see no chunks of butter were in there, so they're all melted. And then we're just going to cover this up, slide it in the refrigerator, and then we'll make our lemon chiffon cake. So now I'm going to make our lemon chiffon cake. I have 6 egg yolks. The egg whites we're going to beat and then add in later. I have 3/4 of a cup of cold water, a half a cup of vegetable oil, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice from those freshly squeezed lemons, and 2 teaspoons of lemon zest, also from those fresh lemons that just came off her tree that I'm so excited about. I'm going to whisk this all together. Then I'm going to mix our dry ingredients. So I have 1 3/4 cup of cake flour. Now, as you know, I make my own, if you've watched this at all. So I took 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and added all-purpose flour until I got to 1 3/4 cups. And then I have a cup of sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. Hold on, there's more cornstarch down there. There we go. So I'm going to whisk all of this together. And then make a well in the center. So just kind of a hole. And pour our wet ingredients in. And then I'm going to whisk this until it's smooth. So lemon chiffon cake is a very delicate cake, which is why I don't make it in my mixer, except for the egg whites. So, let me see how smooth that is. Now we are going to move on to our egg whites. I have our 6 egg yolks right here. I'm going to pour them into my stand mixer, along with a half of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, which just helps them to stabilize and not break down right away. So I'm going to turn this on low. We're just going to beat these until the cream of tartar gets mixed in and it's kind of foamy. Tartar stuck on the side, so I'm just going to push it down into the egg yolks because it's stuck on the side of the bowl and won't mix in. And we're going to mix some more. Okay, so if you can see inside the mixer, it is nice and frothy, foamy. That's what we want. So I'm going to add a half a cup of sugar. Turn these back on high and let them whip until we get stiff peaks. While that's doing that, I'm going to prepare my cake pans. I have 3 8-inch pans. Okay, so we have stiff peaks. That means I stick my whisk inside, pull it out, and it maintains its shape. Now, I'm going to take a third of this, about a third, and stir it directly in with my whisk. Now I'm going to take the last 2/3, it's mixed in, and I'm going to gently fold it in because we want the, basically what we've made is a meringue, but we're going to put it inside the cake instead of cooking it. It's the raw meringue. And we want it to keep the air in it, so we just want to fold it gently instead of the whisking and the breaking down. We want to combine it, but we want to keep the air and the levity in it so that the cake comes out nice and fluffy and not too dense. So once it's all been incorporated, I have 3 8-inch cake pans that we have already greased. And I'm just going to gently pour the batter in. Try to make it even between the 3 cakes, but honestly the amount of air and the way that they rise, as long as you get about the same, you can't even tell that there's a different amount of batter in each cake pan. So now I'm going to stick these in a 350 degree oven for 25 minutes. And then they will rise and be beautiful cakes. So our lemon chiffon cakes took 25 minutes. They're out of the oven. And we're going to let them cool off to room temperature. Then we're going to pop them in the refrigerator. And then we'll be able to bring them out and mix them with the lemon curd and then ice our cake. So after letting the lemon chiffon cake and the lemon curd sit in the refrigerator overnight, it's time to assemble the cake. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the icing, which is a 1.5 cups of heavy cream and 3 tablespoons of sugar. And I'm going to put those in the mixer with the whisk and beat on high until we get stiff peaks. Alright, so we have stiff peaks, and that is where, once again, I put my whisk in and pull it out. It maintains the shape left behind. So this is going to be our icing, and the only thing I'm going to add is, remember that lemon curd we made? I'm going to take 3 tablespoons of it and fold it right into that whipped cream just to give a little lemon flavor to it. So I'm just going to fold it right in. And this is a really light frosting, just like the cake is very light. You don't want to do anything too heavy and weigh it down. There we go. Alright, so we start with 1 layer of cake. Comes right out of the pan. Flip it over. Put a layer of the lemon curd on. My I have an offset spatula that I'm going to use to move the lemon curd all the way around and to kind of make sure it's evenly distributed. There we go. And you will have lemon curd left over, which just means now it's time to make something like lemon meringue pie or lemon bars. Something fun. Or just get some vanilla ice cream and put lemon curd on top. And then our final layer, we're going to put on top. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, let that lemon curd set up, and then we'll frost it all the way around. So while our cake was cooling in the refrigerator, so was our icing. So it's why it's in a different container now. I'm just going to take, spoon some out on the top. And slide it around. So with my first pass around, all I'm trying to do is get whipped cream, or the lemon whipped cream, all around the cake. Now, all that stuff that fell off, we're going to want. So I'm just going to scrape around the edges. And then we're going to put the rest of the icing on. Let me get my bigger spatula. And this will fill in all those spots where you can still see cake showing through. So once I have whipped cream covering the entire cake, I'm going to take my small spatula and just make little waves to make it a little bit texturized. And there we have a lemon chiffon cake.